Deep in his heart, he knew the consequences. He knew this love was forbidden. Yet, defying every oath and every law he lived by, he pursued the one woman his world would never accept. The rain started without warning. It slammed against the marble steps of the cathedral like bullets, sharp and unforgiving, turning the night into a blur of neon reflections and shattered silence. Black cars lined the narrow street, engines still warm, doors open as men in tailored suits stood frozen, unsure if they were allowed to move. At the center of it all stood Kang Min-jae. In Seoul, his name was spoken carefully, quietly, sometimes not at all. He was the man who decided who rose and who disappeared. The unseen hand behind corporations, nightclubs, and blood-soaked alleyways. A mafia boss dressed like a CEO, calm eyes hiding storms no one survived long enough to describe. Yet tonight, Kang Min-jae wasn't looking at his enemies. He was staring at a nun. She stood at the top of the cathedral steps, unmoving as rain soaked the hem of her black habit. The streetlights carved her silhouette into something impossible to ignore. The white edge of her veil framed dark skin that seemed to glow softly under the city's harsh lights, untouched by Seoul's coldness. Her posture was straight, defiant, calm in a way that didn't make sense. Min-jae felt it before he understood it. His heartbeat shifted. "Boss?" One of his men whispered behind him. "We should leave. Police scanners are." Min-jae didn't answer. His eyes were locked on her. She wasn't afraid. That was the first thing that unsettled him. People always feared him, even before they knew who he was. Fear followed him like a shadow. But this woman, this nun, looked down at him as if he were just another man caught in the rain. Their eyes met. The world went quiet. For a moment, Min-jae forgot the gun still warm in his hand. Forgot the man bleeding out inside the black sedan behind him. Forgot the deal that had gone wrong, the betrayal he had just ended with a single pull of the trigger. All he saw was her. She took one step forward. The sound of her shoes against stone echoed louder than the thunder. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice was low, steady, American-accented Korean, careful but firm. Min-jae felt something twist deep in his chest. No one spoke to him like that. "Neither should you," he replied, his tone just as calm, hiding the sudden tension coiling inside him. She studied his face, her eyes sharp, as if searching for something beneath the power and blood. Rain traced lines down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe it away. "This is holy ground," she said. "Violence doesn't belong here." One of Min-jae's men scoffed. Another reached for his gun. Min-jae lifted a single finger. They froze. He took a step closer to the steps, ignoring the rain soaking his expensive coat. He'd faced death without blinking, but standing this close to her made him uneasy in a way bullets never had. "And yet," he said quietly, "here we are." She didn't flinch. Up close, Min-jae noticed details he hadn't expected. The faint scar near her eyebrow, the strength in her stance, the way her habit couldn't fully hide her curves, her body solid and real beneath layers of black fabric, grounded, unapologetic. There was nothing fragile about her. She wasn't porcelain. She was stone. "Leave," she said again, "before more blood follows you." The rain intensified, drumming harder, like the city itself was holding its breath. Min-jae exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, someone was ordering him to walk away. And for the first time in his life, he considered it. "Your name," he said. "That doesn't matter." "It matters to me." She hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Enough for him to notice. "Sister Amara," she said at last. The name settled into him like a quiet echo. Amara. Behind him, sirens wailed in the distance. Min-jae stepped back, his eyes never leaving hers. "You should pray for this city, Sister Amara," he said. "It needs it." "And you?" she asked softly. He paused. "For me," she continued. "What should I pray for?" The question struck deeper than any accusation. Min-jae's jaw tightened. "Pray," he said, "that I never see you again." He turned away. As his men scrambled into the cars and the engines roared to life, Min-jae glanced back once more. She was still standing there, rain pouring around her like she belonged to it, watching him go. The cathedral doors closed behind her with a heavy thud. Inside, Amara leaned against the cold wood, her breath shaky for the first time that night. Her heart was racing. She hadn't planned to confront him. She hadn't planned for anything. But something inside her had refused to let her stay hidden while violence stained the steps of the place she had sworn to protect. She pressed her palm against her chest. Why did he look at her like that? Why did her skin still burn where his gaze had lingered? She whispered a prayer she hadn't spoken in years. Not for forgiveness, for strength, because she knew something terrible and unavoidable had just begun. Across the city, Min-jae stood alone in his penthouse, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's endless lights. He loosened his tie, poured himself a drink he didn't touch, and stared at his reflection in the glass. Sister Amara, a nun, a woman who should have meant nothing, yet her eyes followed him, haunted him. His phone buzzed. "Boss," his right-hand man said urgently. "We ran a background check like you asked." Min-jae frowned. "That was fast. There's almost nothing on her. No family records in Korea. No digital footprint before 5 years ago. But there's something else." Min-jae's reflection hardened. "What?" "That cathedral," the man continued, voice tense. "It's sitting on land your enemies have been trying to acquire for months." Min-jae's grip tightened around the glass. "And Sister Amara?" he asked. A pause. "She's not just a nun," the man said. "She's the reason they haven't moved in yet." The city lights flickered. Min-jae smiled slowly, dangerously. "So that's it," he murmured. "Power over everyone. Until her. And now he wanted her." Before the story continues, if you felt the weight of this forbidden love, show your support by liking the video and subscribing. And be honest with me. Have you ever wanted someone you knew you were never supposed to love? And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? The cathedral bells rang at dawn. Low, heavy, echoing through narrow streets still wet from last night's rain. Sister Amara stood alone in the side chapel, candlelight flickering across stone walls worn smooth by centuries of prayers. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, but her thoughts were nowhere near the altar. They were in the rain, in the man with calm eyes and blood on his hands. She had tried to pray it away, tried to focus on scripture, on routine, on the quiet safety she had built within these walls over the last 5 years. It wasn't working. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him standing there like he owned the night, like violence bent around him instead of touching him. Kang Min-jae. She hadn't known his name last night, but she knew it now. The Mother Superior had told her before morning mass, her voice tense in a way Amara had never heard before. "That man," the older woman had said carefully, "is not someone you confront." "I didn't confront him," Amara replied. "I protected the church." The Mother Superior studied her for a long moment. "Sometimes those are the same thing." Amara exhaled slowly. She had faced danger before. Real danger. The kind that didn't wear suits or arrive in black cars. But this was different. This was power. And power always came back. Across the city, Min-jae watched Seoul wake up from the quiet of his penthouse. Steam rose from coffee he hadn't touched. His phone lay on the marble counter, filled with reports, names, photos. All of it blurred. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw rain sliding off black fabric. Heard a calm voice telling him he didn't belong somewhere. No one had ever told him that before. "She's a problem," Junho said, standing a few steps behind him. Loyal, sharp, nervous in a way Min-jae noticed immediately. Min-jae didn't turn. "Explain." "That cathedral blocks 3 major development routes. Our rivals want it gone. The city council won't move because of public backlash. And now..." Junho hesitated. "Now there's her." Min-jae finally looked at him. "A nun." "Not just a nun," Junho said. "She's American. Came here through a private religious order. No scandals. No money trails. But everywhere she goes, protests stop. Communities organize. Media listens. Min-jae's eyes darkened. She stands in front of bulldozers, Junho continued, and they stop. Silence stretched between them. Min-jae smiled faintly. Then she understands power. That unsettled Junho more than anger would have. At the cathedral, Amara served soup to a small group of unhoused men who gathered near the back entrance every morning. It was grounding, familiar, real. She listened. She smiled. She remembered names. Yet even here she felt watched. Not by eyes, by fate. A black sedan rolled slowly past the street. Then another. Then a third. They didn't stop. But they didn't leave either. Her chest tightened. By afternoon, the city felt different. Tense. Like it knew something was about to break. Amara was in the courtyard when she heard the sound of polished shoes on stone. She turned. Kong Min-jae stood just beyond the gate, dressed in a charcoal coat, hands empty, posture relaxed. Two men waited several steps behind him, alert but restrained. No guns visible. That was worse. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice steady despite the sudden rush of heat under her skin. He inclined his head slightly, respectful, almost polite. "And yet," he said, "here I am again." She crossed her arms. "Did you come to finish what you started last night?" "No," he replied calmly. "I came to talk." She laughed softly, without humor. "People like you don't talk. They take." His gaze sharpened, but his tone didn't change. "People like me rarely ask first." He took a step closer to the gate. Amara didn't move. "Why?" she asked. "Why here? Why now?" "Because this place is standing in the way of people who don't like being blocked," he said honestly. "And because you stood in front of me when no one else ever has." Silence settled between them. "You're dangerous," she said. "Yes." "You hurt people." "Yes." "And you expect me to trust you?" "No," Min-jae said quietly. "I expect you to listen." She hesitated. That was the problem. Some part of her already was. "You want the land," she said. "That's what this is about." He nodded once. "Eventually. And the church." "I don't destroy what creates resistance," he replied. "I redirect it." Amara's jaw tightened. "I won't help you." "I know." That answer surprised her. He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice. "But others will try to hurt you to get what they want." "I won't." Her heart skipped. "That's not protection," she said. "That's control." "Sometimes," he replied. They looked the same from the outside. A sudden shout echoed from the street. One of the men Amara had served soup to earlier was arguing with a group of strangers in suits. Voices rose. Tempers flared. Min-jae turned sharply. Before Amara could react, one of his men moved. Too fast. Min-jae lifted his hand. "Stop!" The command cut through the noise like steel. The man froze. Min-jae stepped back from the gate. "This is what I mean," he said. "There are people who would turn this place into rubble without hesitation. I am not one of them." Amara stared at him. "You expect gratitude?" she asked. "No," he said. "I expect a choice." She shook her head. "I already made mine." "So did I," he replied. He turned to leave, then paused. "Be careful, Sister Amara," he said softly. "The ones coming next won't ask permission." That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She paced the small room she'd lived in for years, memories pressing in from all sides. She hadn't run from violence once in her life. She had crossed an ocean to escape it, and now it had found her again. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it for a long time before answering. "Yes. They're moving faster than expected," Min-jae's voice said quietly. "You have 48 hours. Her breath caught. 48 hours for what? For them to stop asking nicely. The line went dead. Amara sat on the edge of her bed, hands trembling. Outside, somewhere in the city, plans were already being made. And Kong Min-jae stood at the center of them. Not as her enemy, not yet, but as the only man powerful enough to stop what was coming. if she was willing to stand close enough to him to survive it. The first threat came before sunrise. Amara felt it before she saw it. The cathedral was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes your skin tighten. She stood near the front doors, fingers brushing the rosary at her waist, eyes fixed on the courtyard through the stained glass. A black envelope lay on the steps. It hadn't been there an hour ago. Her pulse quickened. She stepped outside, the cold biting through her habit, and crouched slowly. No one was around. No cars. No voices. Just the city holding its breath. Inside the envelope was a single photo. The cathedral. Red lines drawn across it. A date written beneath. Tomorrow. Her hand trembled as she folded it back into the envelope. "So it begins," she whispered. Across the city, Kang Min-jae was already awake. He stood in a private room above one of Seoul's most exclusive clubs, neon lights pulsing faintly through the glass floor beneath his feet. Music thumped below, distant and heavy, but up here, everything was controlled. Silent. "They're rushing," Junho said, spreading documents across the table. "Too many intermediaries. Too much noise." Min-jae scanned the pages. "Fear makes people sloppy. And dangerous." Min-jae's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered without hesitation. "They left a message," Amara said. Her voice was calm, but he could hear the strain beneath it. "Describe it." "A photo. A date." Min-jae's jaw tightened. "Then they've crossed a line." "I don't want protection," she said quickly. "I want them to stop." He let out a quiet breath. "Those are two different requests." Silence stretched between them. "Why are you helping me?" she asked finally. Min-jae looked out over the city, remembering a different night, a different rain, promise he'd broken long ago. "Because once," he said, "someone stood in front of violence for me, and no one else did." She didn't respond, but she didn't hang up either. That afternoon, unfamiliar faces appeared near the cathedral. Men pretending to be passers-by. Cars that slowed too much. Eyes that lingered. Amara felt every one of them. She kept working, feeding people, cleaning floors, praying harder than she had in years. But fear crept in through the cracks. At dusk, a young woman approached her near the back entrance. Well-dressed, nervous. "You should leave," the woman whispered. "They don't care who they hurt." Amara studied her. "Who sent you?" The woman swallowed. "No one. I saw what they did to another place that refused." Amara placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Thank you." The woman nodded and hurried away. That night, Min-jae came himself. No entourage, no weapons visible, just him. He waited by the courtyard wall, hands in his pockets, as Amara finished evening prayers. She saw him through the window and felt something sharp twist in her chest. She stepped outside. "You shouldn't be here," she said again, though the words had lost their strength. "Neither should you," he replied softly. "You said 48 hours. "Yes. And now? Now it's 30. She folded her arms. "You think I'll run?" "I think," he said carefully, "that you're braver than is safe." Her eyes flashed. "And you think power gives you the right to decide that for me?" "No," he said. "It gives others the power to try to crush you." He took a step closer. "Come with me," he said. "Just for tonight." She shook her head instantly. "Absolutely not. If you stay," he continued, "they'll escalate. They want a spectacle. I won't abandon this place." "I'm not asking you to," he said. "I'm asking you to survive." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the tension beneath his calm, the weight he carried, the cost of the world he ruled. "And tomorrow?" she asked quietly. "Tomorrow," Min-jae said, "I make an example." That scared her more than the threat. "Violence isn't the answer," she said. "It's the language they understand." She stepped back. "Then you're no different from them." Something dark flickered in his eyes. "Yes," he said, "I am." The ground shook. A distant explosion echoed through the city. Both of them froze. Min-jae's phone rang immediately. He answered, listening in silence, his face hardening with every second. "They've started," he said. Smoke rose somewhere beyond the rooftops. Amara's breath came fast. "Where?" "Not here," he replied. "Yet." Sirens wailed. Min-jae looked at her. "This is your last chance." She closed her eyes. Every vow she'd ever taken pressed against her chest. Every fear. Every reason she'd come to Korea to begin with. She opened her eyes. "No," she said. "If they want me, they'll have to face me here." Min-jae stared at her, something like awe and frustration colliding inside him. "You don't know what you're asking," he said. "I do," she replied. "And so do you." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Min-jae nodded once. "Then I'll stand with you," he said quietly, "whether you want me to or not." As night fell, black cars began to gather at the edges of the street. Not his, not yet. Amara watched from the steps of the cathedral as shadows multiplied, her heart pounding, because this time she knew. The rain would not wash the blood away. Night fell like a warning. The streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across the cathedral steps. Amara stood near the entrance, her hands folded, her back straight, her heart beating louder than the bells ever could. She could feel them, men watching from cars with engines idling too long, figures lingering where they didn't belong. The air felt heavy, charged, like the moment before a storm breaks glass. Kang Min-jae stood a few steps behind her. Not beside her. Behind. A deliberate choice. "This is where you draw the line?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Amara said. "This place doesn't move." Min-jae studied her profile. The calm on her face wasn't innocence. It was resolve forged by pain he hadn't yet uncovered. "You know they won't come politely," he said. "I know," she replied. "That's why I'm still here." A black SUV rolled to a stop across the street. Then another. Doors opened slowly. Men stepped out, not rushed, not loud. Confident. Dangerous. Min-jae's body shifted instinctively, a subtle change only someone trained to survive violence would notice. "These aren't amateurs," he murmured. "They never are," Amara said. One man stepped forward, smiling like he owned the night. "Sister," he called out. "We just want to talk." Min-jae's jaw tightened. Amara took a single step forward before he could stop her. "Whatever you want," she said clearly. "You won't get it here." The man chuckled. "You don't understand how this works." "I understand enough," she replied. He glanced past her, finally noticing Min-jae. The smile faded. "Kang Min-jae," the man said slowly. "Didn't expect to see you playing guardian angel." Min-jae didn't respond. Silence stretched thin. "You're backing the wrong side," the man continued. "This land will change hands. Tonight or tomorrow." Min-jae stepped forward then, his voice low and calm. "You'll leave. Now." The man laughed again, but it sounded forced. "You think you can stop us?" Min-jae met his gaze. "I already have." A sudden crash shattered the stillness. A brick smashed through one of the cathedral's side windows. Amara gasped. Chaos erupted. Men rushed forward. Shouts filled the air. Someone drew a weapon. Min-jae moved instantly. He grabbed Amara's wrist. Not hard, just enough to pull her back behind him. "Stay behind me," he said. "I won't hide," she protested. "This isn't hiding," he snapped. "It's survival." A gunshot rang out. Glass exploded somewhere behind them. Min-jae's men appeared from the shadows, fast and precise, placing themselves between the attackers and the church without a word spoken. The confrontation was swift, controlled, terrifying in its efficiency. No screams, no lingering fights, just dominance. Within minutes, the street was empty again. Cars gone, men gone. Only broken glass and shaken silence remained. Amara stood frozen, her breath uneven. Min-jae slowly released her wrist. "You're hurt?" he asked. She shook her head. "No." Her hands were trembling. He noticed. "You can't keep doing this alone," he said quietly. She looked at him. "Neither can you." Something passed between them then. Unspoken. Heavy. Sirens echoed in the distance. "We should go inside," he said. She nodded. Inside the cathedral, candles flickered against cracked walls. The damage was small, but the message was clear. They would be back. Amara sank onto a wooden pew, exhaustion finally breaking through her strength. "I didn't come here to fight," she whispered. Min-jae stood a few feet away, hands clenched. "Neither did I." She looked up at him. "Then why are you still standing here?" He didn't answer right away, because for the first time he wanted to protect something that didn't belong to him. "Because walking away would be easier," he said at last. "And I don't trust easy choices." She studied his face in the candlelight. The scars he didn't talk about. The loneliness he didn't admit. "You're not the monster everyone thinks you are," she said softly. His eyes darkened. "Don't say that." "Why?" "Because monsters don't get forgiven," he replied. "And I don't deserve forgiveness." Amara stood slowly and faced him. "Everyone does," she said. "Even if they don't believe it." Their eyes held. Too long. Too intense. Outside, thunder rolled. Min-jae stepped back first. "You should rest," he said. "I'll double security." "You'll stay?" she asked before she could stop herself. He paused. "Tonight." Her heart skipped. As he turned away, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. His expression changed. "What is it?" Amara asked. Min-jae looked back at her, voice low and grave. "They didn't attack the church," he said. "That was a test." Her chest tightened. "Then what did they attack?" she asked. Min-jae swallowed once. "The orphanage," he said. "The one you fund." Amara's breath left her in a rush. And in that moment she knew. This war wasn't about land anymore. It was about her. Amara didn't remember the drive. Only the sound of rain against the windshield. Only the way her fingers dug into the seat as soul blurred past in streaks of white and red. Only the pressure in her chest that refused to loosen. The orphanage gates were broken when they arrived. With splintered, metal bent inward. A window shattered completely, glass glittering across the ground like cruel confetti. Amara stepped out of the car before Min-jae could stop her. "No," he said sharply. "Wait." But she was already moving. Her shoes crunched over glass as she ran toward the building, heart slamming so hard it hurt. The front door hung crooked on its hinges. Smoke lingered in the air, not thick enough to choke, but enough to sting. "Hello?" she called out, her voice breaking. A small figure appeared from behind a pillar. "Sister Amara?" She dropped to her knees instantly, arms opening. A little boy ran into her, clinging to her habit like it was the only solid thing left in the world. More children followed, crying, shaking, alive. Amara pressed her forehead to the floor, relief crashing over her so violently she sobbed. "They're okay," she whispered. "They're okay." Min-jae stood in the doorway, jaw tight, scanning every corner before allowing himself to breathe. His men spread out silently, securing the area. No bodies, no blood. A warning. One of the caretakers approached Amara, her face pale. "They said to tell you," she whispered, "that next time they won't knock." Min-jae heard it. Something inside him snapped. Back in the car, Amara sat curled in on herself, arms wrapped tight, eyes fixed on nothing. The strength she'd held on to all night finally cracked. "This is my fault," she whispered. "They wouldn't be involved if it wasn't for me." Min-jae didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was steady. Too steady. "This isn't on you," he said. "This is on men who think fear is leverage." She looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time, she saw rage in him that wasn't cold. It was personal. "They're escalating," she said, "because they think I'll break." "They're wrong," he replied. Silence filled the rest of the drive. At his penthouse, Amara hesitated at the doorway. "This doesn't feel right," she said. "Neither does letting you go back there," Min-jae replied. "Not tonight." She nodded slowly. The space was quiet, clean, too perfect. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city glowing beneath them, endless and uncaring. Min-jae handed her a glass of water. She took it with shaking hands. I left America because of men like this, she said quietly. Powerful, untouchable. They destroyed everything I knew. Min-jae leaned against the counter, listening. I thought faith would protect me, she continued. Not from danger, but from becoming bitter. She looked up at him. I'm scared of what this is turning me into. He held her gaze. Fear doesn't corrupt, he said. It reveals. She let out a shaky breath. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Min-jae's phone buzzed again. He didn't answer it immediately. What is it? Amara asked. A choice, he said. He finally looked at the screen, then at her. They're offering a deal, he said. You leave the city, publicly, quietly, and this all stops. Her lips parted. And if I don't? They won't stop at threats. She stood slowly. I won't run, she said. Min-jae closed his eyes briefly. I hoped you'd say that, he admitted. And I was afraid you would. She stepped closer. What will you do? He met her eyes, something heavy and dangerous settling into place. I'll end it, he said. Completely. That means people will get hurt, she said softly. Yes. She searched his face, torn. And if you do this, she asked, what will it cost you? He answered honestly. Whatever humanity I have left. She reached out without thinking and placed her hand over his. The contact was brief, electric, grounding. Then don't lose it, she said. Not for me. Min-jae's breath caught. Before he could respond, alarms sounded softly from his security system. Junho's voice came through the intercom, urgent. Boss, we have movement. Multiple locations. They're not hiding anymore. Min-jae straightened. The comm mask slid back into place. He turned to Amara. Stay here, he said. Lock the doors. She shook her head. No, this isn't a debate. She stepped closer, eyes fierce. I didn't stand in front of them to hide behind you now. He stared at her, torn between instinct and something far more dangerous. Care. Outside, the city lights flickered, and somewhere in the dark, their enemies made their final move. The power went out without warning. Not just in the penthouse. Across the block. The city outside the windows dimmed, then fractured into scattered pockets of light, like a nervous system losing signal. Min-jae reacted instantly. Stay here, he said again, already moving. Amara caught his arm. Her touch stopped him. Listen to me, she said, voice low but steady. If you walk out there alone, you'll become exactly what they want. He looked down at her hand on his sleeve. No one touched him like this. Not to stop him. Not without fear. This isn't about what they want, he said. It's about ending it. And after? She asked. What's left of you after? The alarms went silent. That was worse. Junho's voice crackled through Min-jae's earpiece. Boss, internal systems are down. This was planned. Min-jae's eyes hardened. How close? Too close, Junho replied. They're testing your perimeter. And there's something else. What? They leaked your name. To the press. And hers. Amara's breath caught. They know who I am, she whispered. Yes, Min-jae said. And they want the city watching when you fall. He turned to her fully now. You don't leave this floor, he said. No matter what you hear. She shook her head. You don't get to decide that. Before he could respond, a loud crash echoed from below. Glass. Shouting. Footsteps. Min-jae pulled her toward a reinforced interior room, pressing a code into the panel. The door slid shut just as gunfire erupted somewhere in the building. The silence inside the room was suffocating. Amara's heart hammered. Is this who you are? She asked quietly in the dark. Always running toward violence? Min-jae leaned against the wall, eyes closed for a brief moment. It's who the world shaped me to be. And who do you want to be? She asked. The question hit harder than any bullet. He opened his eyes. I don't know anymore. Minutes stretched. Then voices. Raised. Angry. Panicked. Then quiet again. Junho's voice returned. Breathless. They pulled back. This wasn't the strike. It was pressure. Min-jae exhaled slowly. They're forcing my hand, he said. Amara stepped closer in the dim light. Then don't play their game. He looked at her. You think this ends without blood? I think, she said, that if you drown the city in it, they still win. Silence. Then Min-jae straightened. Call everyone, he said into the earpiece. Every ally, every rival who owes me. Tonight we do this openly. Junho hesitated. That's risky. So is letting them decide the rules. He turned to Amara. This will expose everything, he said. My name, my crimes, my past. She met his gaze. Then let it come into the light. Something shifted in him. For the first time, he wasn't choosing power. He was choosing consequence. Hours later, Seoul buzzed with rumors. Emergency meetings, leaked files, anonymous tips. Names no one dared speak suddenly filled headlines. By morning, the city was on edge. Amara stood on the balcony as the sun rose, pale and tired over the skyline. Min-jae joined her. This ends today, he said. She nodded. Whatever happens, I don't regret standing here. He looked at her, really looked at her. I've spent my life taking, he said. You're the first thing I don't want to own. Her breath caught. Before she could respond, Junho appeared, face grim. They've called for a meeting, he said. Neutral ground. Final terms. Min-jae's jaw tightened. Where? The old harbor. Amara's eyes widened. That's a trap. Yes, Min-jae said calmly. Which means it's also an ending. He turned to her. This is where you stay behind, he said gently. She shook her head. This is where I stop being a symbol, she replied, and start being a witness. He stared at her, torn. Then slowly he nodded. As they left the penthouse together, cameras flashed below. The city was watching now. And somewhere at the harbor, men who believed they controlled everything were about to learn. Some power cannot be threatened, only confronted. The harbor smelled like rust and salt. Old cranes loomed over the water like skeletons from another era, their shadows stretching across cracked concrete as waves slapped softly against the docks. The place had been abandoned for years, which made it perfect. No witnesses, except the ones who chose to be there. Black cars lined the far end of the pier when Min-jae arrived. Too many, parked with confidence. Men stood beside them, hands visible, faces calm in the way only people expecting blood could manage. Min-jae stepped out first, then Amara. A murmur rippled through the crowd. They hadn't expected her. She felt every eye on her as she walked forward, the wind tugging at her habit, the early light painting the water silver behind her. Her spine stayed straight, her steps steady. If fear lived in her, it would not show itself. You brought the nun, a voice called out. The man stepped forward. Chairman Park. Old money, old crimes. A smile that never reached his eyes. This doesn't concern her, Park continued. She's just leverage. Min-jae stopped walking. That's where you're wrong, he said calmly. She's the reason you've already lost. Park laughed. You think showing up with a conscience changes the math? No, Min-jae replied. I think you underestimated how many people are tired of you. He gestured slightly. From the shadows, figures emerged. Not just his men. Others. Rivals. Fixers. Brokers. Faces that usually never shared the same air. Park's smile faltered. You called everyone, Park said slowly. Yes, Min-jae replied. Because this isn't a negotiation. It's an exposure. Park's phone buzzed. Then another. Then several more around the dock. Whispers spread. Headlines were already breaking. Accounts frozen. Properties seized. Names leaked. Park's face darkened as he looked at Min-jae. You're burning the whole world down. Min-jae's voice was steady. No, I'm letting it see daylight. Park's gaze shifted to Amara. You, he said, sneering. You think faith makes you untouchable? Amara stepped forward before Min-jae could stop her. I don't think that, she said quietly. I think you're afraid of what happens when people stop believing in you. Silence fell. Even the water seemed to still. Park stared at her, something like uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Then he smiled again. "Kill him," he said casually. Everything moved at once, but not the way Park expected. Sirens screamed in the distance. Floodlights snapped on. Police, prosecutors, task forces that had been waiting for the right moment. The dock exploded with shouts. Men scattered. Park turned, panic breaking through his composure. Min-jae didn't chase him. He didn't need to. Park was tackled to the ground by officers within seconds, screaming threats that no one was listening to anymore. Amara stood frozen, breath caught in her chest. It was over, or at least, this part was. Min-jae exhaled slowly, the weight of years lifting and crashing all at once. He turned to Amara, and that was when he saw it. A man who hadn't run, who hadn't shouted, who hadn't panicked. The gun was already raised. Min-jae moved without thinking. He stepped in front of her. The shot rang out. Pain exploded through his shoulder. Amara screamed his name as he staggered, the world tilting violently. He dropped to one knee, teeth clenched, refusing to fall. The shooter was taken down immediately, but Min-jae barely noticed. All he could see was Amara kneeling in front of him, her hands pressing against his wound, her face pale with terror. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please." He tried to smile. "I told you," he breathed. "I'd stand with you." Tears spilled down her cheeks, unchecked. "You don't get to die," she said fiercely. "Not now." Sirens closed in. Hands pulled her back. Medics rushed forward. As Min-jae was lifted onto a stretcher, his fingers caught hers. Just for a second. Enough. Amara watched as they loaded him into the ambulance. Blood staining white sheets. The man who once ruled the city now fragile and human. She pressed her hands together, shaking. For the first time in years, she prayed out loud. Not for protection, not for strength, but for him. Because somewhere between violence and faith, between darkness and light, she had fallen in love. And she didn't know if love would be enough to save him. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and quiet panic. Amara sat rigid in a plastic chair outside the operating room, hands clasped so tightly her fingers ached. Her habit was stained with blood that wasn't hers, and she hadn't changed it. She wouldn't. Not yet. Doctors moved past her with clipped voices and careful expressions. Each time the doors swung open, her heart lurched, hope and fear tangling until she could barely breathe. Junho stood a few steps away, arms crossed, face unreadable. "He's strong," he said quietly. "Stronger than he looks." Amara nodded, though her throat felt too tight to speak. The hours dragged. Phones buzzed non-stop. News channels looped the same footage. Chairman Park in handcuffs, officials refusing to answer questions. Blurred shots of Min-jae being rushed into an ambulance. Kong Min-jae, exposed, bleeding, human. The city was splitting in two over him. Hero, criminal, savior, devil. Amara didn't care about any of it. She only cared that he had stepped in front of her without hesitation. A doctor finally approached. Her breath stopped. "He'll live," the doctor said. Amara's knees nearly gave out. "He lost a lot of blood," the doctor continued. "But the bullet missed anything vital. He's in recovery now. He can see one person." Junho looked at Amara. She stood immediately. The room was dim when she entered, machines humming softly like they were afraid to disturb him. Min-jae lay pale against white sheets, his arm bandaged. His face relaxed in a way she had never seen before. For the first time, he wasn't holding the world together by force. He was resting. She moved closer, careful, and sat beside him. "You're stubborn," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Did you know that?" His eyelids fluttered. Slowly, they opened, and he smiled. Weak, crooked, real. "I've been called worse," he murmured. Tears spilled freely now. "You scared me," she said. "I know," he replied. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "Don't apologize for living." He studied her face, memorizing it like he might lose it if he blinked too long. "They're arresting a lot of people," he said quietly, including some connected to me. I know, she said. You should walk away, he added. While you still can. She reached for his hand. This time she didn't pull away. I already chose, she said. When I stayed. His fingers tightened around hers, just slightly. Then I need to tell you something, he said. She leaned in. My real name, he whispered. The one before all of this, before power. She listened as he spoke it. A name that belonged to a boy who had survived hunger, fists, and promises broken by the powerful. A boy who learned early that mercy was a luxury. When he finished, silence filled the room. That's who I am, he said. Not the man on the news. Not the monster. Amara squeezed his hand. That's who I saw. A knock interrupted them. A woman in a tailored suit stepped inside, badge clipped to her jacket. Mr. Kong, she said carefully. I'm with the special prosecutor's office. Min-jae's jaw tightened. We need to talk, she continued. About immunity. Amara's heart sank. The woman glanced at Amara. And about her. Min-jae's grip on Amara's hand tightened. What about her? He asked sharply. She's become a symbol, the prosecutor said. Public interest is intense. There are questions. About her past. Her funding. Her role. Amara stiffened. Min-jae tried to sit up. She has nothing to do with my crimes. I didn't say crimes, the woman replied. I said influence. After she left, the room felt colder. They'll come after you, Min-jae said quietly. Not with guns. With words. Amara nodded. I've survived worse. He searched her face. There's more you're not telling me. She hesitated, then took a breath. In America, she said softly, I testified against a man who owned everything. Police, judges, churches. Min-jae's eyes darkened. He didn't go to prison, she continued, but people around him did. People I loved. Understanding settled between them. You didn't run, he said. You were sent away. Yes. And you became a nun, he said slowly. To survive. And to remember who I was before fear, she replied. Silence stretched. Then Min-jae spoke, voice barely above a whisper. If I go to prison, he said, I don't expect you to wait. She stood, leaned down carefully, and pressed her forehead to his. I won't wait, she said. I'll live. And when you come back, you'll have to catch up. A faint smile touched his lips. Outside the room, cameras clicked. Questions sharpened. The city watched. Because Kong Min-jae was alive. And the woman who stood beside him was no longer just a nun. She was a threat to everything built on fear. And that frightened people far more than any gun ever could.